Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Do you like scary podcasts? Welcome back to Houselights, the show that slices through a director's career like Ghostface through a phone line. I'm your host, Tristan Riddell, and don't worry, I've locked all the doors, checked every closet, and would never say I'll be right back. Now joining me from the video store, he's got the rules memorized, a stack of VHS tapes, and enough horror trivia to survive any sequel. It's John Mills. And of course, no horror ensemble would be complete without the wild card. He's unhinged, unpredictable, and may or may not be covered in corn syrup. That's right, it's Darren Moser. Today, we're dialing into 1996 and unpacking Wes Craven's genre-redefining, fourth-wall-smashing, meta-masterpiece, Scream. So grab your voice changer, keep your parents out of town, and let's pick up the phone.
Wow. So I guess thank you for coming to our podcast. We know what Tristan is going to rate this film.
Wait,
And,
is it because I'm wearing my Ghostface pajamas?
You kind of tip
underneath.
That's exactly why. Oh,
my
geez.
Ghostface blanket.
You kind of tip your hand when you refer to it as a masterpiece. Just a working note for you later.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I forgot to be coy in my introduction.
It's a meta podcast, though, because now the whole thing is about reconstructing and having our conversations about the podcast. So there you go.
So, okay, I want to ask you guys, before I go into my spiel about when I first watched this, Darren, when did you first see this?
Well,
Like,
not in
were you
not
young?
96,
Not in
because
96.
I would have been in sixth grade, and shame on my parents if that was the case. But no, this was probably high school, or actually, this probably feels like a summer camp movie where you're working at summer camp, and I haven't talked about summer camp in a long time, but we would.
A little kid drowns while the camp counselor should have been watching. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. This would be on the weekends when you had a scant couple of hours of free time before the next round of kids came in. And, we're out in the middle of nowhere. So they had the boxcar meeting room, which was part actual train boxcar with like a building built into the back of it. And they had one of those giant CRT screens on a cart that they'd pull over, and it had, the DVD and the VCR and all of that. So if someone had a disc and brought it over, like, hey, let's watch this, and then everyone got all their food and hung out, and that was bonding times. That's where I think I first saw Princess Bride. And so, yeah, camp movie memories are great. So I think this was one of those, like someone wanted to introduce Scream. So
Gotcha.
good times.
Cool.
John, before you answer,
Yes.
I want to know, what is your favorite scary movie?
I mean, the easy answer is Halloween. I mean, I have a tremendous affinity for it. It's, the theme music is, my friend used to be able to turn it on at night when I was in my 20s. And we'd be driving along because we grew up in the middle of nowhere. So he'd turn on the music. I was like, turn it off, man, turn it off. So my affinity is for Halloween, but probably if I were to go for something that's more recent than that unsettled me a great deal, I would actually have to go with, as crazy as it sounds, bear with me, Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, because that thing is just like a drug fever dream, and I didn't know what was going on, and Captain Spaulding should be president. So that's about it for me.
Do you know who else liked Halloween?
The Kevin Williamson, the guy who wrote this movie.
Casey Becker.
Well, there you go.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
So, okay, when did you first see Scream? Were you aware
In the
of
theater.
It? You
Oh,
saw
yeah.
it in the theater.
Yeah, no, this was.
Were you like Wes Craven opening night, midnight showing? What were you hoping to see with this?
Oh no, typical sort of thing. Like the trailers were interesting, and I think I made reference to this either on the show or something like that. Where of course, Joey and I were in the height of our movie going days and stuff like that. And it's like from legendary horror director Wes Craven, and we were the ones that were like, "Are you sure you want to go with that one guy?" But okay, and because we knew everything he had done besides Nightmare on Elm Street, but Yeah, I mean, it was like it was especially for the age range. I was in the right age range for it. Like listen, set aside everything else you know about Miramax's management. They knew how to plug a movie. They knew how to get butts in the seats. They knew how to promote, and they promoted it right. And everybody went in and everybody saw it, and everybody talked about it. It was a water cooler movie sort of thing.
And that, it's interesting that you say that because it's true, because it opened a couple of days before Christmas because they wanted to give the horror fans something to watch, because horror movies don't typically come out during Christmas time. And it didn't really do that great opening weekend. Like, it came in 4th when it opened, and they're like, oh crap, this movie's going to flop. But it kept getting better and making more money each week. It would either stay the same, or it was word of mouth. It was everyone saying, you got to go see this. You got to go see it. And so you're exactly right. It was a water cooler movie.
Yeah, and a big thing was Drew Barrymore getting killed in the beginning. I remember specifically there was a whole thing where it was like, tell people to see the movie, but don't give anything away. Like, it was the first real instance I can remember about sort of spoiler culture, where it was like, don't give it away. Now, there was stuff before this, like Crying Game was in that, No Way Out was in that sort of thing. But like, this was very much in that whole thing where it was like, hey, tell your friends to see it, but don't tell them why. Because
we actually studied this in marketing class because of how they went all in on Drew Barrymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she's like, her face is the one on the cover of the VHS, I think. She's front and center on the poster. Like, her name is there. Like, this was, as far as everyone was concerned, this was Drew Barrymore's movie. Like, she was the new Scream Queen. Like, she was the one who was going to take over for Jamie Lee. And it was, and then just like, boom, first she had 5 days of filming, first scene gone. I mean, that was, at the time that this came out, that was crazy town to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's even more, it leans way into the whole Janet Leigh thing from Psycho, right? It accelerates it. It's for the modern age. But I mean, more stunning than anything, I cannot imagine a movie nowadays keeping that secret. Like, think about the trustworthiness of your cast and crew. Now, this is pre-social media and everything like that, but internet was just starting out. People like me were on the internet and everything like that.
Space Jam probably had a website. So
something like that. But, I mean, nobody can keep their mouth shut about something like that now.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I think the only modern example that I can think of is from House of Cards season 2. And if you haven't seen that and you want to, it came out a while ago. Skip ahead a couple of seconds. But Kate Mara's character dies in the first episode of season 2. Like, she was one of the main characters in season 1, and she dies in the first episode of season 2. And they had marketing materials with her in it. Like, she, like, fake stuff that never happened. Like, her in front of a news van. Like, you're like, oh, she's going to become a TV anchor. Okay, that's interesting. And they had Kate Mara release photos of herself with the crew and cast throughout production of season 2, even though she wasn't involved for most of it.
That's smart.
Yeah, and it was just stuff like that. And then, of course, people who read the book or watched the original UK version knows that her character was going to die soon. But that's the only modern example that I can think of, and that was still 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, this movie was legit. This was a hot property, when it came out. And you're right, Tristan, it was all word of mouth. It was all people seeing it and then saying, oh no, you got to go see it. So, tons of credit to them for marketing it right and putting together something that people enjoyed so much that they did.
When I saw this when I was a young lad. I think I was in middle school, maybe 6th grade. Somewhere around in there. My sister is 4 years older than I am. And so she was the key, she was in high school. She was a key demographic for this movie. She went and saw it, fell in love with it. And as soon as it came out on VHS, she went and bought it. She brought it home and she sat me down in the basement when the parents weren't there and said, you have to watch this. And she had never done that before. Not once did she sit me down and say, you need to enrich your life and watch this. And
That's awesome.
it was a real bonding moment for me and my sister. Like I love my sister. Like we talk every day. But like last Christmas, I bought her Ghostface earrings. So like it's still a touch point between us. And I think I went over to her house and stayed the weekend. It was just the two of us, and we watched like all the modern Scream movies, like the past 3 that came out. Like we marathon those in one night. So there's no way I can be objective about this movie, but I'm going to try really, really hard.
Fair. Very fair.
That's my backstory with it. But okay, so Darren, I want to ask you. She's actually texting me right now. She texted me like 5 minutes before we started the podcast.
Not now, Madeline.
No, seriously, like 5 minutes before we started the podcast. I'm not making this up. She had no idea I was podcasting about Scream. 5 minutes ago, she texted me a picture of a Halloween costume of someone dressed up as Casey Becker with Ghostface on her shoulder, taking her out.
Fabulous.
So, yeah, it's a thing between us. So Darren, I want to ask you. So Wes Craven's career up to this, he's done a lot of movies that we haven't seen, but we have seen New Nightmare, we've seen Nightmare on Elm Street and everything like that. With all the other slasher films that you've seen, I know it's not your biggest genre, but what did you think about when you watched Scream? Did you think, oh, this is clearly a movie that Wes Craven should have directed, or could you see somebody else taking care of it?
I think just overall, it was a good movie. The premise was unique. Like it's a little meta, but that hadn't really been done in that way before, at least to my knowledge. And yet when I think of like slasher movies, there's always a kind of supernaturalness to it. Even with like Halloween, which doesn't have necessarily that aspect, there's still labeled as like this psycho killer kind of from the beginning, whereas this approaches it as like, this is your schoolmate. Like, this is just a guy in town that watched too many movies and went off the deep end. So yeah, I think Wes Craven obviously has an affinity for horror from the pieces that he's made and the genre. So this is like someone who loves the genre and has dabbled their fingers in it, making I won't go quite as far to say love letter to, slasher movies, but you can tell they loved that genre. So I think this sounded like a perfect fit for him.
See, watching it this time, and especially in light of the last 2 movies we watched, I was trying to look at it as, is there anything here where I look at this and I'm like, that's a Wes Craven movie? And I can honestly say, no. There's not a visual flair where I look at it and I'm like, that's a mark of a Craven movie. Like, even if I can't point to a specific image, I can look at something and I can say, and I say his name specifically because he was quote unquote considered supposedly, like if Quentin Tarantino had directed this, there's a certain framing and, Robert Richardson would have been the cinematographer for it. Would have a lot of harsh, overhead lighting and stuff. But like, it's unfair though, because I don't think that Craven brings a visual style to this so much as he brings to your point, Darren, he's the right director because, especially if you look at his filmography and if you look at the whole thing with what happened with, New Nightmare and stuff like that, he's ready to move on and redefine something about it. He's not stuck. Like, I couldn't see other horror directors coming in and doing this in the same way that Craven does, where he's not holding anything about it sacred. He's willing to go in and, because some of the names, like, at least that Wikipedia claims, Danny Boyle, which is like, what? Like that causes my head to hurt. But like Sam Raimi's mentioned, George Romero's mentioned, Bryan Singer, which I think is the most crazy one of the bunch, because I could see Tarantino doing this. You look at like something like Death Proof, and you could see Tarantino doing this movie, but I can't see Raimi really. I can kind of see Raimi, and that's where I'd see the visual stuff. But I think Craven's right because of where he is in his career, and I think our big signal is
Right
New
place, right
Nightmare.
time.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. And it's funny how you're mentioning like someone who's ready to pivot and try something new, and then makes like 4 more of the, he locks into this franchise. But I think honestly, I don't know if another director would have tried to stick the Drew Barrymore death in the very beginning. Like that is a choice, and but because it not only is fascinating in its uniqueness, am I saying the same thing? But it's also something that just it sets the tone for like, okay, you're not gonna, we're gonna play into the stereotypes, but be ready for a curve or two. Like that's kind of what it sets up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the opening is brilliant because of the fact that it throws you immediately off guard. You're not really used to, something that shocking in the beginning, even of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like that. There are sort of established pacing sense.
Yeah.
There's always an early
town,
but I mean, there's always like an early kill. Like you go back to Halloween. This is like Halloween where it's like you have a shocking kill in the beginning. But what this does is it amplifies it with that Barrymore thing. And I think, additionally, just to tie it all back up, is like between New Nightmare and this film, Craven did Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy. Thing was a complete bomb, complete dud. I've never even watched it. Like it came and went from the theater so fast. And like, I can tell you, like, that was during a weird phase in Eddie Murphy's career too, where he was like, it was like Boomerang, and it was like, Vampire in Brooklyn. It was like, what the hell is going on right now? This doesn't make any sense to me. Now I got to go back and watch Vampire in Brooklyn because I'm like, oh, maybe it was ahead of its time. Maybe people just weren't ready for it.
I highly doubt that, but
probably. But Craven, I think, points in this direction. That's what makes him the right director. Sure.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about the intro and the uniqueness of it. It made me think of Predators, where they're falling out of a plane.
Yep.
Like it's a different kind of shock value because it starts off slow, with the phone call and all of that. And it just feels like, another teenage summer. But
I think that I'll be interested to go back to the sequels. I mean, I didn't, we'll save that for later discussions and stuff like that, because this is definitely a movie that finds itself where it's like, well, the technology changes so soon after this that it's like, what would this situation look like in the modern day? But of course they went on to do a ton of sequels and everything. But with that opening
cell phone movie,
just to be the Jamie Kennedy type of character, because I love horror films. That's just what I do. He is actually wrong. They are actually wrong. Ghost faces are actually wrong. When he kills, he is the Shape. He is not Michael Myers. So when he asks her, who is the killer in Halloween, end credits error with Michael Myers' adult age notwithstanding, in the credits, on the soundtrack, everywhere else, he is the Shape when he kills. He's the Shape stalks, the Shape kills, the Shape hides, the Shape goes out and buys ice cream. When he's in the mask, he's the Shape. And I would just throw that flag as he broke in and tried to kill me. However, having lived in the middle of nowhere, I can tell you that we were prepared for situations like that, and I'll just leave it alone.
Normally I would say like, wow, that's really pedantic. But in this type of movie, that would be called out.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Darren, I have a question for you. So this is meta horror. This was, I'd say, the first successful attempt at meta horror. And did you think it was too much? Do you think it was like beyond parody? at that point. Like there's a scene where Neff Campbell opens up a closet door, the music rises, and then she shuts the door, and there's no jump scare, there's no nothing. Did you think it was too much, or were you comfortable with it?
No, I think they struck a good balance. And the thing with the closet and the music, that's just straight up slasher. You need that. I think where it got really meta is when they're specifically talking about the aspects of movies, even so far as look around, he's watching the TV, the giant CRT TV, ask your kids. But and he's like, look behind you, and literally the you know ghost mask is coming behind him, which is hilarious. But
And there's even another layer on top of that, because that's one of my favorite meta moments in the entire movie, because he doesn't just say look behind you, he goes, Jamie, look behind you.
yeah,
And he's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, and the actor's name is Jamie. Like, his name is Jamie.
there you go. Well, I also like the fact that they mention real people like Jamie Lee Curtis, like they're mentioning as if it's a real thing, not like, Arnold Smegulator. Like, it's like, no, like these are real. Like, we don't have to pretend that we don't live in the real world. I liken it more to like a Galaxy Quest where it's meta, but it does it right and funny, and you enjoy it because they know their stuff.
I like that comparison because it is a parody, but it's a loving parody. Like with like I remember like one time Jonathan Frakes talked about how he called up Patrick Stewart and said, "You have to go see Galaxy Quest. It's so awesome." And Patrick Stewart's like, "I don't know. Like, I don't want to just be made fun of for 2 hours." He's like, "No, no, no. It's so much better than that. Like, you have no idea. You need to go see it." And because not only is it a parody of sci-fi films, it's a good sci-fi film
It's a
in
love
its own
letter
right.
as
Yeah.
well.
That's kind of how I see Scream.
Yeah,
John.
well, no. I mean, I want to jump on that because that is an important point that people can easily overlook. Is a parody done by people who don't truly love the genre can be a lot like a Mel Brooks later day parody, right? Like a Dracula Dead and loving it. It's an outsider making fun of it. I think that again gets back to why Craven is the right choice, is because he's been in the industry, but he doesn't hate or resent it. He's having fun with us and saying, "Come on, we all know how this works." Like there's a decided difference between when somebody who, it's a terrible analogy or whatever, but it's like when you're mad at your brother or sister and you're like, "Oh, they're being such an idiot. I can't believe blah 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 blah." But then when somebody else says that your brother or sister is being an idiot, you're like, "Shut your mouth. What are you talking about?" This is somebody in the family having fun. And so it's like, it's okay. It's okay to make these jokes because you're making them the right way. It's not laughter of the strong man where you're mocking me for even liking it in the first place.
Well, and it's the difference between like the scary movies where they're straight up parody. Like they are mocking, you
I
know.
I tried I thought I liked Scary Movie. I tried rewatching it like 6 months ago. It does not hold up.
It's so juvenile. It's
It's
really
so
bad.
juvenile. It's ugh. It's not funny anymore. It's just gross. It's just like, maybe if I was 11, I would find it funny.
Yeah.
But so you're talking about like talking about movies, Darren. Like there's a list that somebody made of all the movie references in Scream.
Of
I'm
course.
just gonna, I'm just gonna say that real quick. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th Part 2, Prom Night, Howling, Basic Instinct, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, E.T., Evil Dead, Hellraiser, Terror Train, The Fog, The Exorcist, I Spit on Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, All the Right Moves, Silence of the Lambs, Clerks, Are You Alone in the House, Trading Places, Psycho, Carrie, Clueless, and Apollo 13.
But Clueless and Apollo 13 came out like 2 years beforehand. So, okay.
But they're referenced. They're referenced in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I know, but it's like it's so, I don't know. For me, it's like all of the other references like make sense, and the other one just seems like a, like a a nod in the ribs to a friend sort of thing, like somebody putting
like they're shooting it,
you know,
and they literally watch the movie, and then they go to set the next day. And
Okay.
yeah.
Do you guys not remember how powerful and omnipresent Houston We Have a Problem was
Oh, no, of
when
course.
Apollo 13 came out?
Yeah,
True.
of course.
True.
Of course. Wasn't there a shooting
Everybody
star
was
in this?
mentioning
Isn't that a Jaws reference? Or actually a Spielberg Universal reference? The shooting star.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting is the guy who wrote this, Kevin Williamson, went on to do Halloween Water a couple of years later, or he wrote an early treatment of it at least, so that they could attach his name to it. And that's not a good sequel, but I found it interesting because you talk about the stuff that it references, but then you see when the van goes off in and has the crash with Gail, Courtney Cox's character. Basically, that comes back in Halloween H2O 2 years after this with an ambulance van that goes off down the road and crashes and everything like that. So watching it this time, I guess it's been a while since I watched it. I was like, oh, all right. Williamson references himself later. Cool.
Well,
cool.
didn't Williamson? He also wrote "I Know What You Did Last Summer," which you can also kind of connect with this '90s era of
fair
resurgence for this genre.
Never watched that one. That was the one with the Gorton's fishermen coming to kill the kids, right?
Yeah, the guy, the hook.
Yeah.
John, you brought up Kevin Williamson, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the writing in this film because you alluded to having a bone to pick, and I want to give you the floor.
Now, the bones to pick that I had were me nerding out about certain references, certain things where I'm like, it's one of those things where it leans so heavily into certain tropes that I consider them lazy and misguided, but it's me sitting there and like wanting to debate him about like, well, that's not really what goes on in horror movies, that's not why that's happened. That's more what I was making a reference to, because it's the thing in the beginning where the shape is the killer, or I could pick a bone with Wes Craven about the fact that I know Halloween so well that he's watching Jamie Lee Curtis discover her friends. Jamie Kennedy is, and then she's backing up. He's like, turn around, Jamie, turn around. And then when whoever it is comes in later, that scene picks up as if no time has passed, even though a whole bunch of stuff has happened. And I'm like, so does this mean everything's simultaneous, or are we teleporting now?
Jeez, John.
I'm just saying, like, if you're going to have the in-movie reference, you might as well.
They establish it's a 30-second delay.
Gosh.
They make it a real clear plot.
It's more than
point.
30 seconds is going on. Anyway,
That has to be your flimsiest complaint I've ever heard on this. On these over 200 episodes that we've done together.
I defy you. There's no way that's the flimsiest complaint I've ever had. I stand by my comment here. I have made far worse. But in terms of also the way that certain other things are structured, honestly, I think that there's stuff that is not explored enough, or not necessarily explored enough, but like there's the whole thing about her mom and who her mom really was. And that leans into Craven as well, where like Nightmare on Elm Street is all about the sins of the parents coming back to visit the kids. I like that. But then there's the character of the dad. And I'm like, there's a whole lot being said here. And the dad, I feel like there was an opportunity for her and the dad to have a few more conversations about how the dad had resolved everything that had come out since the year. I think that some of the stuff.
No. Wait, the dad took his parenting advice from Bastian's dad in Neverending Story.
There you go.
Your mom died. Don't talk about it. Eat your breakfast. Get to school. Like,
I'm talking more about the mom's proclivities. Like,
okay, but that's the thing. That's the thing, John, is that like they had to. You had to keep guessing on who the killer was. Like with what Darren talked about earlier, is like, this isn't Jason, this isn't Freddy. There's mystery as to who the killer is or who the killers are. And, like that conversation between Stu and Randy in the blockbuster is he was talking about like maybe it's the dad, like he went crazy because of his wife's death.
Mm.
Like everyone was throwing that around. I feel like if we got to know him too well, or if we, like if he showed Sydney that he had resolution, that he was fine with it, that wouldn't put him at the top of the list, because with him being gone,
Well, I'm talking
it
about
adds to that.
I'm talking about the stuff that comes out about the mom and her social life that was aside from her murder. That it you know it seems like there would have been more of an
Would you talk to your kids about that?
No, I'm not saying that so much. I'm saying like it's just the dad is
He's a prop.
he's not
He doesn't do
as
a lot.
he's just not as well rounded out as I think he should have been. Like he maybe deserved another scene or two is maybe what I'm saying, instead of the perfunctory thing. But to bring it back around to other stuff, the don't do drugs rule. Okay, that's not true. Lori is smoking weed when they come up to Sheriff Brackett in Halloween. She's actually holding the weed so she doesn't harsh in front of him. Okay. There's also the whole thing about, quote unquote virginity and stuff like that. Well, no, if you really break it down, it's not virginity per se. It's that the more adult and responsible person is the one who's not so self-centered and so selfish that they are not aware of what's going on around them. So like it's that sort of thing where like I would love to sit down and sort of like break it down. And I know that everybody's getting bored even hearing this sort of thing.
Oh
but,
my gosh, John. You can't, like, would you want, like, when Randy's talking about the rules and he's standing in front of everyone, do you want him to go, okay, listen to my symposium. This is what we're going to do for the next hour and 30 minutes.
Yes.
Is
yes.
we're going to,
No,
we're
no, he
going
says
to
that,
talk about
and then
every
we
single
cut
variation.
to upstairs and we don't hear any of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
John, can you
It's a
honestly
good
tell
point.
me, like,
Good point.
like watching the Friday the 13th movies,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could bring those rules together just from those movies.
Okay. First and foremost, the Friday the 13th movies are like the, that's like ABC in the 90s. Everybody's watching NBC, and ABC had sitcoms, but they weren't the best sitcoms in the world, sort of thing. Going to Friday the 13th is going to an unfortunate, very, very visible well. And the thing is, like we were joking about a second ago, like everybody's going to get bored if I go down this road. So I just invite everybody to find me online so that we can have this robust debate.
Okay, so
about the horror
John
genre.
disagrees with the rules. Okay.
I do very much.
All right.
I disagree with the way they're expressed. I
Yeah.
I
For a
disagree
movie that
with
is
it.
all about the technical points,
No, hold on.
they're pushing the line.
Let me put it this way: that as a gag, as a joke, as spitting it off in a scene, it's great. It's funny. It works. I think my reaction is more rooted from the fact that people who don't understand the horror genre watched this movie and they were like, this is how horror movies work. And it's sort of that thing of not, it poisoned the well the same way that Kevin Smith or Tarantino himself or anybody else poisons the well by funny scene that works really well. People who are not as well steeped in the lore take that as like the gospel, like Bill's rant about Superman. They're like, oh, well, yeah, that's the interpretation of Superman. And it's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to, like that sort of thing. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Okay.
I know.
We log that TED Talk down. And
it's really interesting. I was in researching this. I'm so used to big budget Marvels and massive production times that I did a double take when I read that this was shot in like May to June of 96 and then it came out in December. Like that's mere months. I mean, granted, there's no like green screen or craziness, but that feels so simple and fast.
Yeah, it was.
And on top of that, 21 days of that shoot time was devoted to Stu Macher's house at the end of the movie.
Like the last act.
The last act was like 42 minutes long, and it all took place in Stu Macher's house, and it took 21 days. Like they gave out T-shirts to people, and it said, "I survived scene 118," because it took so long, because they filmed from sundown to sunrise
Oh,
every
you're
single
right.
day
It had to
for
be at
21
night.
days.
Oh.
So, in terms of the photography, I suspect you gentlemen are both good with the fact that everything was nice and clear at night and lit super well.
It was. It
It
was so
was.
refreshing.
It was great. I mean, granted, a lot of it was inside the house, but you're right. They never hid, Ghostface in shadow. He was just either there or not.
Well,
Although
I was
there
thinking more
was,
about Dewey and Gail walking down the road. There's
yeah,
like it was one of
Always a
those things
full
where I was like,
moon.
yeah,
Always a
where
full
is
moon.
that light source?
always a full
Okay.
moon. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I could see it. I can understand them. I sent my mother the trailer to Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and she's like, "Great, another pitch black movie, but I have to see it."
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about Dewey, you talked about Gale, and everything like that. So like, I want to talk about the characters because I feel like we haven't really had a chance to talk about the casting yet, and the casting is probably one of my favorite bits of this movie. And I know that he's not top billed, but I want to talk about him, and that's Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher. He, in my opinion, steals every single scene that he's in. And Kevin Williamson said that Stu Macher was a very underwritten part, but the only reason why it's such a memorable part is because of Matthew Lillard. Darren, how do you feel about that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll get back to him in a question that I want to ask after, but no, I mean, you can see this kind of really launched this era of his career. We have Monsterpalooza, which is like kind of a horror convention down here in Los Angeles area happening this weekend. And he's a guest, not only for this, but, the Five Nights at Freddy movies and the Scooby-Doo and all of that. So he just, one of those great actors that just kind of keeps getting work. He's usually the number two, but he really runs with it. Anything he's given, like he's going to make better. And he definitely does that here.
John, how do you feel about Stu? Is he too over the top? Is he too in your face? Or what
Oh
do you think?
no, I think he's a refreshing need. I do not exaggerate when I say that Matthew Lillard gives so much energy to his performance that without him, the movie doesn't work as well. Hands down. He is the spirit of this movie. He is the most serendipitous casting that they could have had. This is seriously, this will overstate it a little bit, but his casting is along the lines of Harrison Ford as Han Solo. It's like it's still good without him, but it's not the same without him.
Yeah, it's not the lightning in a bottle effect if he's
Exactly.
not there. One of the tropes that I hate about horror films or psycho films or things like that is when the person is completely normal for 90% of the film, and then at the last moment when they reveal that they're the killer, all of a sudden they got a twitch and they're like talking funny and they're a completely different person and they're like, "I'm crazy. Can't you tell? I was crazy the whole time." I hate that in movies. But with Matthew Lillard's interpretation of Stu, he's so amped up throughout the entire movie that when he gets even crazier at the end, it's not that big of a jump. And it allows Skeet Ulrich as Billy to be lower. Like they're able to play on multiple levels because Stu is so high and crazy. Billy can have those moments where he gets really intense and close to Sydney saying like, "How about this for a motive?" And you have Stu in the core and going, "Bacow."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it balances out because this movie, one of the things it excels at is making you unsure of who did it. And the big twist is that there's two people, because for the biggest amount of time you don't know that, and you're like, well, wait, how could it have been him? He was in jail, and and all these twists and turns. Like watching it again, this wasn't my first viewing, so watching it, I was very I was noticing and trying to pay attention to when did so and so come on screen? Did they have time to step away? Who was Ghostface in this scene versus the next scene? Because knowing that, it made it enjoyable to kind of try to, because there were no holes in it that I could find. But like you said, Tristan, for Billy, he's approaching it as the, you know, jealous boyfriend kind of, you know, like, oh yeah, he could do it because he's definitely sketchy as all get out. But then you know, Stu is sketchy as well, but he's also playing, he's so in the box of the quirky best friend that you don't even look at him. You're like, oh yeah, that's the, like you're watching Clueless, you know, like, or any other 90s movie, like he is in that box. So that's why he kind of sneaks under the radar until that last scene when he drops the facade and you're like, oh, because he's more of the surprise, I would say. Like Billy's turn is kind of almost inevitable at the end, even though they try to, like, you know, double surprise you with the fake blood. But when
and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when Stu walks in, that's when you're like, oh man.
Yeah, when Billy,
Yeah.
when because like up until that moment, like after Sydney and Billy have sex, I'm like, it has to be Billy. Like it has to absolutely be Billy. And then they do the fake out where where Stu fake slashes Billy, and I'm like, that totally worked on me when I first saw it. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. It's not Billy. It's got to be somebody else. And so that really, really worked on me. Like, John, what did you think?
Oh, having the two working in tandem was the masterstroke of the movie, because it does take you off guard when Billy gets stabbed. You're like, oh yeah, like especially the first time you're watching it. Now, subsequent times you're kind of like, you're just waiting for it. You're like, you know, it's coming and stuff like that. And I'll give Craven a lot of credit for not shying away from giving Billy those furtive glances and those ominous looks, because the first time you watch it, you're like, oh, he was giving me a red herring. And then the second time you watch it, you go, oh, he was giving me the middle finger and saying, I'm just going to put it in plain sight and you're just going to fall for the gag. Like, that is the biggest sense of having fun with the movie to me, is that's somebody leaning into it and saying, oh, let's have a time. Let's have a you know, just a kicker of a time with this, you know. And I appreciate that. I think another thing that I appreciate with the way that things are constructed is the fact that Ghostface takes a beating. I like the fact
Gets the crap beat out of him like every time he goes up against somebody,
and he's so easy to knock down.
And even though, like, the good thing is that having them as two, it's like, oh, all right, so it was Billy and not Stu, and that's why Stu isn't sopping wet and covered in the stink of beer to the point where somebody's like, dude, what did you fall in a keg? You know, like, it's like, oh, it's because the other one took the shots. But then you have to wonder why she doesn't say, oh my gosh, did you fall in a keg? Because beer bottles
to
exploding.
be fair,
on
I
you.
totally forgot about the fact that the beer bottles like cracked over him, like, until you just mentioned it. Like, that scene, I'm not paying attention to that in that scene, but you're right.
I'm not saying I'm familiar with being accidentally doused in beer, but I will say it sticks with you.
Now, John, Sydney, the character of Sydney, has been in very many sequels to this movie. Very, like, huge franchise presence. And I think I could be wrong, but more sequels than Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. Maybe neck and neck.
No, because Jamie Lee was technically in 4, but she's only in the opening of the 7th one. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 8th one.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
with Sydney, like, she's in 1, 2, 3, 4, and
She's in 6.
in 6.
She's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which was just called Scream, and and she's mentioned in 7.
Okay.
And
so,
she's mentioned in 6, and she's in 7. So
okay, so we're talking neck and neck with Laurie Strode. John, do you think Sydney as a character? I want to get a 2-part question, and Darren, I want you to think about this too. is, do you feel like Sydney is a worthy successor of Laurie Strode? And if so, or if not, do you think Nev Campbell contributed to that? Or do you feel like anybody could have been Sydney?
Uh, I mean, it's tough to say nobody else could have been Sydney because I know that there was a tremendous, pool of talent from which they could draw, right? So do I think the movie doesn't work as well without Nev Campbell? Um, Maybe not on the level of Matthew Lillard, but she brings enough of an edge to her read of Sydney that she reads as wholesome but troubled. And I think that's what works. To compare her to Laurie Strode, I don't think is like a fair 1-to-1 because Laurie was technically only in 1 and 2. They woo her back because of the success of this film into Halloween H2O. So if you want to argue impact and importance, Nev Campbell is incredibly important to the genre because you could say that without the success of Scream, Halloween H2O doesn't really happen the way that it does. And so, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, draw your inferences there. So I think Nev Campbell, though, is terrific in the role. She's exactly what needs to be. You believe her as a real person in the movie. And I think her character is very important to believe in for the movie to work.
I think that's incredibly well put. Darren, do you agree, disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel because Laurie is leading lady. I have a hard time equivaling that to Sidney Prescott because it's kind of the other side of the coin that you get when you do the intro like you do in Scream. Like on the positive, you get the amazing shock of, oh my gosh, you killed Drew Barrymore and what's going to happen next. But I feel like the other side of that equation is I know that Sydney is the lead, but this really feels like an ensemble movie. Like I am way more interested in the group than I am in one person. Like, yeah, things happen to her, and obviously you would never deny that it is her story, but I am more interested in her friends and the boys and getting together and the whole thing. It gives a different taste than Laurie. So I'm excited to as we watch through the other Scream movies, seeing how that matures and how that advances. So
I was gonna mention that to you because I really want to get your opinion on this and that evolution once we watch Scream 2. Because I feel like you might
Cruise
have a
control.
different answer. Uh, I feel like maybe you'll have a different answer, but I'd be very intrigued if you don't. And speaking of the ensemble, I love Rose McGowan as Tatum. I love the character of Tatum so much because I feel like she's the quintessential best friend in this. That is a very different personality than your lead, but yet she complements Sydney very well, in my opinion. All right, so we're rounding third here. We got to get some final thoughts, but is there anything like John? What bugs you about this movie? Like, so many people are in love with this movie, and it's made such a huge impact. It had like what was the budget? It had a budget of 15 million, and it earned over 173 million dollars worldwide. Holy crap!
No,
What a
it's
return!
a good return. Yeah,
It's a huge
good
return, but hey, Terminator movies make a return too. I'm sorry, not Terminator. Transformer movies make a return too, but those aren't beloved like some of these. So like John, like what sticks in your craw about this? Real quick.
we already covered that.
Okay,
We don't
Okay.
want to bore anybody else.
I wanted to make sure you had the floor. I wanted to make sure you have been heard.
I appreciate that. I wouldn't. I honestly, in terms of the way things are structured and the way that the story progresses, what I think is an absolute marvel about this movie is nothing is boring. There's no scene that feels boring. Sometimes it's simply by virtue of the fact that Matthew Lillard has so much energy that it's impossible to be bored. He's like Jim Carrey in that sense, like Jim Carrey of the 90s, where it's like when he showed up on screen, it was like, whoa, okay, energy.
That's what they tell you in improv is like, if you can't be funny, at least be energetic.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that it's put together well. You know, it progresses, it moves, it doesn't belabor the point, and it puts things together. There are a couple of things where, you know, probably, like I said, with the dad, I would have liked a little more time there. Like even if it's just to cast more suspicion on him. But yeah,
You know,
moves pretty well.
I think you just gave a great final thought. How about you just give how many dead teenagers are you giving this film?
4 dead teenagers.
Whoa, that's way more than I thought you were going to give.
Oh, I know it's way more. I think that I'm also incredibly generous with it because I recognize, and we all acknowledge this, I recognize exactly how impactful it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that. I can't remember the last time I did that. I feel like it was oh geez. I think with Predator. That's how I was with Predator. I gave Predator 4 stars mainly because of the cultural impact and what it inspired and how it moved forward.
Well, it definitely wasn't Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, it was not. Darren, your final thoughts and rating. How many Scream masks are you giving this?
Well, yeah, and I mean, we didn't even talk about like Henry Winkler like showing up. It's like, oh look, there's the Fonz, you know, eating the scenery on every scene.
They even had his leather jacket in the movie.
Being the man, he was the man in this and died for it. One thing I want to mention was my favorite kill, because there's a lot of kills in this one, and honestly, Matthew Lillard's kill is the one that gets me because it's before his pseudo death, when he's like kind of wigging out as he realized like I got stabbed too much and I'm literally bleeding out, dying. Like that is the most disturbing kill for me of all of them. Like the others are just like, oh, I got my throat cut, or oh, I got like, I mean, they're impactful, but his was like kind of traumatizing to watch because you're watching someone die and they're realizing they're dying. Like it stuck with me more than any of the others.
Yeah, and that's such a great moment. Like when he's, like he said, he's like, "You hit me with the phone, you dick!" Like I'm bleeding, I'm getting a little woozy here. Yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic scene
in true Lillard fashion. But no, I think I'm also going to give this a 4. It's a solid movie. It's very rewatchable, quotable. You know, does honor to the genre, and I mean, you could see why it made the word of mouth, why it made a ton of money, why it made several sequels. You know, it's a good movie, and it treats its audience well. It doesn't belittle them or make them act as if they're stupid. So yeah, I'm giving it 4 ghost faces.
Well, this is going to be a complete surprise to both of you, but I give this film 5 stars.
What?
I know.
No.
I know. I was hard on it earlier, but
wow.
it earns
your jammies kind of gave that away, Tristan.
I love this film dearly. It means a lot to me. I rewatch it once a year at least. This is one of my favorite films to rewatch. It's probably one of those films that I've seen the most. It's probably in the top 10 of the films that I've seen the most, like repeated viewings in my life. I absolutely love this movie. I love this series. Like they are not all created equal, but what franchise is. And I do have some gripes with it. Like I feel like when it's just Sydney and Billy together, the movie grinds to a halt. You're like, oh, like those scenes are too long, too awkward. I don't think Billy and Sydney have much chemistry together. I think the actors don't really have that much chemistry, even though they like each other in real life. Like that's the entire reason why Nev Campbell signed on. Like she said yes is because Skeet Ulrich was going to be in it. But regardless of that, like as we often say, the good far exceeds the bad. So I'm giving this 5 bloody knives, and I don't feel shame about it. Darren, what are we going to be doing and talking about next week? I think the viewers might have a guess.
They might have a guess, but yes, we're going to continue through the next 3 movies of the Scream franchise, going next week with Scream 2, Cruise Control from 1997, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.